Mar-a-Lago is back in the news. Will we ever see volume 2 of Jack Smith's closeout report, the hundreds of pages detailing all of the crimes that Donald Trump committed before Aileen Cannon, his judge of choice, decided to bail him out? Well, the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals has given Aileen Cannon 60 days to make her decision before they make it for her and ultimately for her about whether we're going to see, as the American people, volume 2 of the Jack Smith report. We already saw volume 1 about the DC election interference case. We demand to see volume 2 as well. We cover it on Legal AF, the podcast. Here's a clip. Why don't we talk about Mar-a-Lago? There's been a development there before we take our first break. I think we can cover that pretty efficiently. So remember Aileen Cannon, Dina?
Oh, yeah.
Donald Trump's favorite judge. Well, Donald Trump decided that he needed to remind Aileen Cannon that he's still the president. He nominated her as a judge because he's now moved to intervene in the lawsuit, the Freedom of Information Act lawsuit, effectively brought by American Oversight, which is a public interest group, and the Knight Foundation. They have been litigating for many months now in the 11th Circuit and at the Southern District of Florida courtroom of Cannon to get volume 2 of the Jack Smith bestseller about the Trump prosecutions. Volume 1, we saw already, a couple hundred pages related to the election interference case that was in front of Judge Chutkan. That was released by Merrick Garland with the approval of Judge Chutkan, and that was that. But volume 2, dealing with Mar-a-Lago, the Espionage Act, the obstruction of justice, Donald Trump's role in all of that, his using employees like Carlos D. Oliveira, an IT worker, and his butler, Walt Nauta, to cover up for the fact that he basically stole classified documents and took them with him to Mar-a-Lago when he shouldn't have. That volume 2 never got released. It was one of the many failings of Merrick Garland. He should have released that before he left office. Instead, he left it with a cover letter addressed to Pam Bondi, like, well, it's in your hands now. Merrick and Jack Smith couldn't release it on his own. It was blocked from being released by Aileen Cannon for a good reason at a particular moment. The case was still going on against Walt Nauta and Carlos de Oliveira. But then that case got dismissed by the Department of Justice and through appeals. And there's no chance they're going to be prosecuted again. Statute of limitations is going to be up by the time the Democrats take over the Department of Justice, and this Department of Justice isn't going to be prosecuting them. So release the doc. 11th Circuit sends it back and gave Aileen Cannon 60 days to make her decision. Why don't you talk about what you picked up in the filings and how do you think this is going to come out?
Well, thank goodness, first of all, for the nonprofit organizations. So many doing such good work throughout many Trump actions here and keeping this, the toe to the fire. And to your point, Trump has a much harder argument for stopping the release of this information because his former aides there's no longer a trial. You would say otherwise releasing the information could prejudice potential jurors, not give them a fair trial. Now that that's off the table, it's going to be much harder for Judge Cannon to come up with a reason not to. Of course, this is Judge Cannon. And, so she likes to do the bidding of Trump. We think that she was hoping for a higher appointment from him. Who knows? Maybe she's still looking for a promotion. In any case, the argument is basically one, it's grand jury proceedings. It should remain private. There's confidential information, national security information, and the big Jack Smith wasn't even validly appointed. So this information should not come out because basically it's part of a case that was never validly brought and investigated to begin with. That's essentially the Trump argument. But it is really hard for and Cannon maybe will get reversed on this if she does rule in favor of Trump, because the fact is Merrick Garland was appointed by Jack Smith. No higher court has actually upheld Judge Cannon's earlier decision that, she took the Justice Clarence Thomas footnote from the Supreme Court decision and kind of tried to run with it. But that's never actually been validly affirmed, let's say, by an upper court that Jack Smith was invalid appointment. So you have a valid appointment by Jack Smith. You have a valid investigation. You have valid subpoenas. You have valid, gathering of information. So it is very hard to argue against the release of this information. As you said, Volume 1 was already released. And especially now that you have these former aides dismissed. She has about 60 days to decide. So it will be mid-January when we find out her decision.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it should be released. I think Cannon's going to do everything she can not to release it. And it's going to go, she got reversed twice at the 11th Circuit the first time around. And I think Judge Pryor, who's the chief judge sitting in Atlanta at the 11th Circuit, is just chomping at the bit to get another Cannon case back in front of him. And I think if she F's it up, I think the 11th Circuit will fix it. I think we'll ultimately see. Now, look, I'm not going to be shocked by anything in the Mar-a-Lago. I think there was a superseding indictment in that case. It was 37 counts. We got a lot of the evidence. We understood a lot of the evidence from reporting and from hearings and from filings and from motion practice and press conferences. So I think, there might be some interesting tidbit in there about, wow, I didn't realize that person was involved in that. Mm-hmm. But by and large, I think we've gotten a lot of it, but it needs to come out to the public. We spent tens of billions of dollars for that investigation, and Donald Trump his lawyers were genius in blocking that release while he was running for office. But now there's no reason why, and it's a public record, and it should be released to the public. So I agree with you. I think she's going to probably find a way to screw it up, and then the 11th Circuit will have to bail it out. Welcome back. We sit at the intersection of law and politics so that you don't have to, twice a week, Wednesdays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on the Midas Touch Network. Pick us up on audio platforms like Spotify and Apple, on YouTube here, as you can see. And of course, if you want to become a card-carrying member of the Legal AF community and really support us, come over to Legal AF, the YouTube channel, and hit the subscribe button. It's all for free, no paywall. Legal AF Substack, become a paid member. And now you're a full-fledged card-carrying member of the Legal AF community. Until my next report, I'm Michael Popak. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.